Okay, Sam, we'll start with you.
Coach, thanks for taking the time to do this with us. So starting off to just a quick outlook of the 2021 slate. Obviously, you're starting off with three guys in their respective top 25s. Noah has a lot of excitement around him. What are you most excited about for this upcoming season?
I'm most excited about just competing. You know, it was taken away from us in March. We weren't allowed to compete at the NCAA tournament. And we've been off the mats forever. You know, normally we're 2 full months into it. So we're just excited to watch some wrestling and to compete, you know, in general.
Next question from Kevin.
Coach, I know those early parts of your season are often a lot of individual things where guys go to different events. Missing a lot of those, jumping straight into team competition, does that change the way, you know, you prepared, the way this season will play out?
It didn't change the way we prepared. We're preparing them the same way. But, you know, boy, it changes just, you know, the way the season plays out. I mean, like you said, there's a lot of kids right now that, you know, a lot of our, you know, young kids, backup, second teamers that are supposed to be getting all these open tournaments in. And, you know, it's tough on those kids, you know. There's some kids, some pretty darn good kids that, you know, maybe normally would redshirt that are going to get 0 matches or maybe 1 match. If we can get an extra match, get somebody to bring an extra guy and run an exhibition. So it's really changing, you know, a lot for these kids. And, you know, it's going to be a tough adjustment.
Next question from Carly.
Coach Sam mentioned Noah, and obviously he comes in now with a boatload of expectations after the year he had last year. Just what's his attitude been like entering this year, knowing that there's a lot of hype around him this time around?
I don't know that his approach has really changed. You know, people forget just because you're an elite athlete or you're this hulking guy, he's just a student athlete. You know, he's been quarantined. He's been, you know, dealing with schoolwork and, you know, he's just dealing with the normal ups and downs of being a student athlete. We haven't competed in so long. I don't know. And, you know, it seems like, I don't know if he's, you know, thinking differently, but I think we're just focused on this weekend and just getting a couple matches in and see where we're at.
Next questions from Chris.
Can you speak a little bit you mentioned that obviously this is vastly different from any other and it's a challenge for the kids, but can you speak to it from a conditioning standpoint when you think of the fact that it's a condensed off season, it's a much quicker and condensed season? What are you looking at from a conditioning standpoint to make sure that those guys are kind of ready to go right out of the gate? Because traditionally you'd have, you know, those extra matches to kind of help you along in that conditioning process. But this year you don't have that.
Yeah. Well, their physical conditioning has been the same. I mean, we were permitted to run, you know, albeit we had 2 practices at you know, we'd have to run 1 at 3, 1 at 4:30. So the kids weren't all together, but we did our normal running phase. We may have cut back a little bit on the wrestling because we had to run 2 practices to get them in a reasonable amount of time, but their shape and their amount of time on the mat has been very, very similar. I think where you may, you know, just see, you know, I hope not this weekend is just, you know, getting used to being down to weight, weighing in, wrestling a match, weighing in, wrestling a tournament. So I think, you know, we'll see. You know, we talk to our guys a lot about trying to be professional, you know, and the best guys, you know, that's not an issue. You know, the best guys show up all the time, regardless of COVID, regardless of weighing in, they show up. So we've been preaching that, and we'll see this weekend, but overall conditioning should be pretty similar, just again, maybe getting used to making weight and then competing, we'll see how that works out this weekend.
And we'll go back to Sam.
But you added a big transfer this year in Killian. He's ranked in the top 25. Pretty solid expectations for a new guy. How has that adjustment period been in this bizarre off season, and how do you think he's going to pan out on the mat this year?
I think he's going to do well. He, I just mentioned the word professional. He just approaches the sport the way, we want kids to. He's early to practice. He takes care of his body. He eats right. He's stretching. He goes to the training room after. He tries to do all the right things. And, from that standpoint, it's been a blessing to have, another guy in there just doing everything he can to be the best he can be. And, we need that. The more guys you have like that, it drags some of the younger guys up. He's been a pleasure to have, and we expect him to do well.
Next question's from Kevin.
Coach, as you continue to build the program, do you have a goal for, a certain number of conference wins this year, or is it more still about looking at your overall program development, being more competitive, things like that?
At the end of the day, we try to look at each kid and analyze where they are and try to get them to reach, I guess, as high up as they can by the end of the season, and then you add all that up and see where your team is. But yeah, I mean, in general, 2 years have been long 2 years as far as winning. We want to get more wins. Obviously, we know we're in a competitive conference where, you're going to run into some storied programs and top 10 programs. But, there's a difference in college wrestling. You can lose a dual meet 30-0 and, every single match be like down to the wire. So the score looks bad, but man, was that a tight match. We've had some losses where it wasn't like that, so we need to just be more and more competitive and listen, we want to win. I tell these kids all the time, being young is not a excuse for losing. There's plenty of young kids that win, and so why can't, Peyton Hall be that guy? Why can't Peyton Hall win the national tournament? Other kids have won it as a freshman. So that's how we try to approach it. But yeah, I mean, actual wrote down, hey, where do we want to finish in the nationals? No, we want to get more wins and we want to start to put some kids on that stand, at the NCAA tournament.
Next question's from Chris.
You mentioned a little earlier that, one of the other changes. Sorry about that. You mentioned earlier that one of the other changes is going to be, with such a young squad, and another challenge will be the fact that there aren't going to be as many fans as there traditionally are at the Coliseum. Have you had any conversations with your team about, that match day environment and them having that responsibility to sort of pump themselves up and motivate each other even more than they traditionally would?
I haven't, but they know what's going on. I just think they're excited to start the season. I don't care if they wrestle. I don't think they care if they wrestle in front of 1,000, 20,000 or 0. They, it's been a long time. These kids are used to competing, and we took away, a whole summer of training. And, I guess I go back to when I was a kid. I got into wrestling because my parents said, you're always touching people. Keep your hands to yourself. These kids can't. They want to wrestle. They want to get a hold of someone and grapple. And so they're just excited. I don't think the lack of fans, we do have a pass list, so I think their parents will be. I think they're going to be fine as far as that goes.
Next question's from Carly.
Coach, you mentioned the NCAA's. Obviously, Noah's chance was taken away from him last year. How much do you think it motivates him? And for you, you said that his expectations might not have changed, but what are your expectations of him this season?
I expect him to keep doing the same thing, coming to work with his hard hat on and working hard and competing hard. Things aren't always, going to go your way. I think he's going to have to deal with, more kids. Listen, when you're the top ranked guy, everybody wants to beat you. I mean, it's different than being the number 2 ranked guy. It's just a little bit different. And he's got to deal with that. Every time he goes out, he's going to get someone's A game. And we don't really talk about the NCAA tournament a lot during the year. We just talk about getting better for the next game. So I don't think he's thinking, I know it's 2 months away, basically the NCAA tournament, but that seems so far away right now. We just, trying to get kids in and get tested. You got to get officials tested. It's like all this stuff's going on. We just want to get in some matches this weekend. So, but we expect him to keep, going out there and competing hard and doing his best, and I think his best is a really high level. We've seen it. So if he can perform at his best, good things will happen.
And we'll go back to Kevin.
Coach, I saw the results of your wrestle offs that you had 2 to 3 weeks ago. Does that pretty much set your early starting lineup, or do you have X number of positions that are still kind of competitive where guys will get different slots early in the year?
I think, it kind of sets it in the beginning. There's some kids that were messing around with their weight for the wrestle off. So we might have a guy or two different. Like at 149, I think Roberts will start off for us. We just had a heavyweight wrestle off. Wolfgram won that. Obviously Noah didn't wrestle off. Or did he? No. So, Noah will be in, heavyweight will be Wolfgram. At 184, there were 2 overtime matches. So, obviously Carmen will get the nod, but, we may get Muma, we may get him in there for about this weekend. We just got to wait and see how they compete. Ultimately in our sport, it's easy to say, oh, the guy who wins the wrestle off is in there, but we're like any other sport. The guy who performs the best is in there, the guy who can win. So if I think you can come in and win a match that Noah Adams can't, you're in, so that's the way it goes. We want to win matches. But I think for the most part, what you saw, 133, Joe Thomas wrestled off up a weight. He won that spot. So, there are a couple changes in there. So, we'll see on game day. I'm holding my breath just, hey, they all test negative on Friday. We can, you know what I mean? So I'm trying not to get too amped up yet and see what we have on Sunday.
Any other questions for Coach Flynn? All right, I think this will wrap this up. Just as a reminder, if you want to come